Good morning, Namaskar. Welcome to this YouTube channel of mine, Afterlife Communication. If you remember, I spoke with you a week ago and we were speaking of my husband, Professor Vijay Kapoor, and formerly an IS officer. He and between the communication after his death that I, as his wife, received. Right? I gave you an overview, uh, just a few snippets of it. So, a very good morning and namaskar. Welcome to this YouTube channel of Nandini Kapoor and her story of communication with her husband, Professor Vijay Kapoor, after his death on 31st May 2013. I mentioned in my first introductory video that I had written and published a book, a small book, a novella, on this entire personal experience of receiving messages from my husband, Vijay, as well as many more manifestations of him that he had survived his physical death, his consciousness, his soul, his spirit body. All these were very much around us, particularly I experienced a lot of it. Today, as I promised, I will be introducing my book, which was published recently. Let me talk about my book to you today. The book is listed in Amazon, Flipkart, and Kindle edition. You will give me 2 minutes so that I can show you the link to my books, to this book particular. So this is Messages from Heaven, Afterlife Communication by Dr. Nandini Sinhapur. Let me read out the blurb which is published at the back cover of my book. Whenever a loved one suddenly dies, do you feel like knowing his or her well being and whereabouts? You never know that your loved one may be confused after his or her sudden physical death, but is equally keen to connect to the loved ones on earth. That is what happened to Vijay and Nandini. Vijay sent a lot many signals that he might have died, quote unquote, but he was very much alive in the spirit world. Nandini learned a few techniques of afterlife communication, such as voice recordings and photos through water instrumental transcommunication. This entire technique is known as ITC or instrumental transcommunication, to which voice recordings belong. Um, Shooting photos through water vessels, that is also included here, right? So voice recordings and photos through water instrumental transcommunication and messages through automatic writing, all these yielded wonderful results to prove that Vijay had survived his physical death. Now, this is published by Book Street Publication. Book Street Publication, and this was published in this typo, not January 2021 but January 2022. It has an ISBN number and the copyright belongs to the author Nandini Sinhapur. The book is dedicated, this is the dedication page. The book is dedicated to my husband, late Professor Vijay Kapoor, late Professor Vijay Kapoor, who was also a former IS officer of 1977 batch, and Reverend Gaurav Tiwari, the former president of Indian Paranormal Society. After the acknowledgement you have contained, there is a total of eight. There is a total of eight chapters, small chapters. At the end of the day, it's a novella. It's a small book. First chapter, chapter-wise synopsis of the proposed monograph. Second, introduction with special reference to Ian Stevenson's work on the science, self, and survival after death. This is a famous book of his. It was published that Professor Ian Stevenson of Virginia University Medical School, he was a professor of psychiatry, and he did a lot of research, including reincarnation cases in Sri Lanka and in India, particularly in Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar. He had done a lot of field work on reincarnation, particularly among the children. So, special reference to Ian Stevenson's work on the science, the self, and survival after death. That is the title. Science, the self, and survival after death is the title of his book. Then comes the real chapter, chapter 3, which is full of my personal experiences, including voice recordings, the kind of results I got from voice recordings, as well as there is a beautiful photo of Professor Vijay Kapoor shot 2 years after his death through water instrumental transcommunication through the water vessel. I was pointing out to the link in my last video that how how did he look and how did he look before and after his death. I'm going to show it now to you, and I had given you the link to see that short film or documentary made by Aaj Tak TV channel under its prime time serial Adbhut Akalpaniya Abhiswasaniya. So the I'm going to show you that. But let me just tell you that this is a bit of extracts from third chapter. So, recording spontaneous experiences of the author following the sudden death of her husband in a massive cardiac arrest. My real life experiences. Vijay was a domineering and intense personality in his lifetime. I was somehow convinced that Vijay was not at all about the body that lay dead in front of me, but he was around somewhere in the vicinity. I was not far from the truth as Vijay manifested himself in numerous ways. The telephonic call made to the examination center, Delhi University, from his phone on the morning of the Hindu ritual of immersion of ashes, and the bell rung on the midnight of Chautha ritual day. Mere convincing indications of Vijay's presence and manifestation very clearly following his sudden death, including our old household staff, my son, all are witnesses to this kind of uh, manifestation of his presence. I was talking about that in this chapter. Let me show you. This is the photo of late Professor Vijay Kapoor. Can you see his photo? This is the real lifetime photo of Professor Vijay Kapoor. Now, please look at this photo. This and see the comparison with this photo. This photo was shot 2 years after his death on 5th July 2015 through the water vessel. How do we do the water vessel? That you will get to see in the Aaj Tak TV documentary. How does one do it? So look at this photo very carefully. You can see the outline of my husband's features, nose, lips, mouth, chin, eyes, forehead from a side face perspective. Side face perspective. Can you see it, please? So, image of late Professor Vijay Kapoor shot through water ITC instrumental transcommunication method on 5th July 2015, 2 years after his physical death. For us, it was Eureka. It was, we were lucky to capture this shot. We were lucky to capture this shot, right? And it has few examples also of the voice recordings that how some of his voices came through, some of his sentences came through, right? Uh, for instance, I will give you one or two examples. Like when I asked him that a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, he reciprocated by saying Merry Christmas. Yeah, so there are recordings. I have said at what minute, at which one. Uh, after death, we are at a much higher frequency and we are supposed to be rotating. Uh, we are rotating at a faster rate. The one of his best in 2014 was what he said, Vijay, don't you worry life and death. Many are there. So around me there are many. Don't you worry life and death means uh, we do survive our death. Life continues after death. That's what he had meant. He, in fact, when you said Irma, your mother, she had seen my mother because my mother had just uh, predeceased him by a year. Happy birthday. My birthday comes around the end of December, so all that is very well recorded. Next, chapter 4 is a background on instrumental contact and pioneers. It gives a brief history of uh, pioneers, Bogaras, and many famous scientists and practitioners of voice recording. Uh, it's important, and some of the instruments besides digital voice recorder that Francis Grierson, Milton, all these have been mentioned here, right? Raymond Bellis, Harry Gardner, most of them are American, some of them are from UK also. But the two most important names without which voice recordings don't make any sense because they published big works on them. One is Frederick Jurgensen of Sweden, Frederick Jurgensen, Jurgenson, Jurgensen of Sweden, and Dr. Konstantin Rodiv, right? And these two are very, very important. Rodif's work, breakthrough, and amazing experiment in electronic communication with the dead. So, do read Rodif Voices. Voices became known as Rodif Voices after the breakthrough was published. So, I have given a summary of few important names and their work. Chapter 5, Techniques of Electronic Voice Phenomena. This chapter is largely based on information from Dr. Annabella Cardoza's book, EVP Voices from Another Dimension, as we acknowledge her contributions. Since she is a very well known practitioner of EVP, information is very authentic. So, we discuss the techniques of recording electronic voice phenomena briefly for the benefits of readers. So, there are two books of hers, particularly this book I have based this chapter on, and I have acknowledged her contributions. EVP Voices from Another Dimension. How do you record voices of the quote unquote the dead, your loved ones? Where and how to record, source of noise, what kind of fieldwork she did, procedures, style, and conventions of recording, equipment. She has done a lot of the voice recordings, particularly on the uh, radio also. I am yet to pick up on the radio technique. I do it through a simple digital voice recorder. You can buy it for 4,000 plus rupees. Sony, particularly Sony, it's very useful. Cardoza's favorite source of noise is the white noise of radios tuned to shortwave band. I quote her, however, human voices seem to be a vehicle that really facilitates the recording of anomalous voices. EVP voice appears to be more easily recorded if one uses human voice, such as, for example, a radio emission in a foreign language or simply the recording of a conversation between several people or a proper live conversation as background source of noise. We might speculate that the reason why this happens is perhaps because the communicators use the background noise, the acoustic carrier, to modulate their words, and if the carrier is of the same nature to what has to be produced from the process would need to be facilitated. Experimentation log, the logbook has to be maintained, the listening procedure, direct radio voices. She received a lot of direct radio voices from a particular spirit being. Then, chapter 6. Chapter 6 is the magic of the automatic writings, messages from Vijay. I have a very good medium, Mr. Kavas Chotia, who's based in Mumbai. I have visited him twice with my son, and he had actually, right in the beginning, established a, quite a good rapport with my uh, husband Vijay. In this, I have given the details of the messages of my husband, which come through this medium called Mr. Kavas Chotia, based in Mumbai. It is really amazing. For example, I would like to give you an example that you know, 2015 December, when my son was in sixth standard only, uh, I still have a small son, but he's completing his 12th board examination and he will be in college in next few months' time. Uh, I had not allowed my son to go on a school outstation trip. My son did not make hue and cry about it because he was a regular tennis player at that point of time, which he still continues to do, practicing tennis. Uh, It was one of the early messages. And there was no need for me to tell the medium that there was a school outstation trip. I did not let my son go. All these was not required. Therefore, therefore, I went ahead and Aditya did not make any hue and cry about it. So what he said that it is not, I was surprised to get this message from my husband that it is not good to uh, let the child sit at home, and you did not allow him to go to a school picnic. I was uh, i was really very surprised that I had not shared such a small event with the medium. So how come Vijay was so concerned, and how come he knew? That shows that Vijay continuously follows follows, and he keeps an tab, he keeps an eye on the activities that mother and son do. So that's very clear about it. There are so many such examples. Information that there was no need for me, routine information which I did not um, share with the Kavas Chotia ji, that is our medium. But Vijay had come to know about it on his own. So he is both in Bombay and he is both in Delhi. So he is following us and he takes a note of our activities. Conclusion, last chapter, chapter 7. And the purpose of this monograph is to dispel the common perception. So, what is it I'm talking about in the uh, concluding small chapter? Some thoughts. Purpose of this monograph is to dispel the common perception that we cease to exist altogether after our death. Death is a problem of the body, as Tom Butler and Lisa Butler said in their book. There is no death, there are no death. It is not a problem of the human soul and the spirit life that we live after our physical death. Interaction with Vijay after his physical death certainly proves that we all continue to have an afterlife in the spirit world. The debate continues whether our existence continues after death or we completely cease to exist after death. The more one is educated, the more one is skeptical. A common educated man usually dismisses the prospect of an afterlife and disbelieves in a concept of soul. Even if one believes in a soul, he does not give it any credence at all. He refuses to believe that the soul can also have a life of its own. The soul can survive and can operate in an afterlife realm. Most of us have a materialistic view of human existence and that we can only survive in a gross physical world. We can't think of a subtle world, nor can we think of a different dimension for us. Rest of the book is for you to subscribe, to buy the book. Book is priced only for 200 rupees. You can please uh, You can please plan to buy this book by ordering it through Amazon, Flipkart, or Kindle edition. Now, just let me find out if I can give you the link for this book. Give me 2 minutes break. I'm going to give the link to my books. It is listed in Amazon and Flipkart and Kindle edition. I'm repeating myself. I'm going to add it on to you after some time. So please type messages from Heaven Afterlife Communication, Dr. Nandini Sinhapur, and you will get to see the cover page of the book. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. In the next one, I will read extracts from my book. Thank you so much. Have a good week and have a good day. God bless you all.